that's the whole point of it. That's why I think paid verification works. Paid verification removes that. You see what I'm saying to you?
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, everybody will have a blue check, but everybody won't. Everybody won't have the accolades,
Okay.
right? So yeah, everybody will have a blue paid verification. Everybody got one, but you've already conditioned the public to believe that verification has to be assigned or has to be aligned to some sort of notability. Like you have to have done something that's significant. So if you notice, people still ain't getting verified. You could look and see that tons of people still ain't getting verified because some people really understand and really feel like they don't deserve verification, because they feel like that it should be relegated to celebrity. Like we've already conditioned those people for that.
Right.
So
Right.
people who could go and get verified, they won't, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
of that, because one, they feel like maybe they don't feel like they're notable enough, and then two, they may feel like it's not worth paying for,
Mm-hmm. Right.
or I can't pay for it.
Right.
Right? Because let's not act like people, we're not going through tons of inflation, and that might be more than people want to pay or can pay.
That's true. That's true. And it's interesting how there were so many backdoor deals that were going on when it comes to these verifications. People, employees were making a lot of side money, charging cats $5, 10,
$10,000.
$10,000,
Yeah.
and and the actual company may or may not have been eating from that. Depending on what's what.
But that goes back to what we said about the inside track,
Yeah.
right? That goes back to that inside track bias. If you didn't know somebody, you couldn't get verified. So it had nothing to really do with notability in some
Right.
cases.
And
You know what I'm saying?
unfortunately, it's very similar to just the music business in general, where you gotta know somebody to get into it. It ain't always based on your talents, or it ain't based on what you see. It's not based on the creativity. It ain't based on all these things. It's really, for the most part, who you connected with, who you gotta pay, who could get you here, who could get you there, who walked you through this door. And you could be the wackest artist or got the most horrible beats, but if you're well connected, you could be all right. There's
It's,
enough
it, it's
there's
real.
enough brainwashing. There's enough brainwashing, and there's enough people on payroll that will make your whack song brainwashed to sound like it's a pretty decent song. Happens every day.
But that's the whole point of verification, and I applaud Elon on this, and I think we may have touched on this before.
Mhm.
Is uh, we went through the pandemic, and with the pandemic and all of that stuff that was being put to the forefront, and then stuff that was put into the back. All right, so you had a whole bunch of information going out that may not have been right, may have been misinformation, so forth and so on. And what happened is that was perpetuated by a cycle of journalists that had blue checks,
Right.
or people who were in quote unquote authority had blue checks. And
Right.
we took what they said as facts.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that put people that made people make decisions that could have impacted their lives and their livelihood. And I think the whole point of it now is to say, listen, these people that have blue checks, they may have paid for it. Like, make sure you're doing your research to who you follow, and just don't blindly follow somebody, because remember, before, you had to quote unquote be somebody to have a blue check.
Right.
So that automatically gave people a certain level of validation and a certain level of a voice that everybody else didn't have.
So folks basically gotta retrain themselves, recondition themselves.
To research whoever's talking.
But Joe, we always said that on this podcast. We've always said, be careful, be mindful of what you're listening to out there, who you're following, the information you're getting. There's a lot of misinformation out there, and you really need to dig deep in people's credentials. See who they are. What have they done? Stop blindly listening to folks who don't have no credits, don't got no numbers on the board, haven't done anything.
It's again, it's the it's the world old thing that we talk about. They talk about people who are academics and people who are real true life experience. And like, do you want the person who's book smart about a subject, or do you want the person who had the experience in the subject?
Right.
Because just because you're book smart in the subject doesn't mean you know it. You know, doesn't necessarily know what to do when certain things happen. Like, you know, true life experience is always going to trump. You know, somebody who did it is always going to be. It's always going to trump somebody who wrote about it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, you wrote about it, or I wrote the book on this, but did you do it?
See, that's one thing, man, that I love about what we're doing, man, because a lot of this, is really just based on our experiences, man. Like our experiences, and of course, we've done the research as well, and we've read the books, and we've even found books where this is outdated because when we were in that situation, it didn't really go like that.
It didn't apply.
Yeah, and I remember reading certain books and then being tossed into them situations where, I'm in a studio with this person, and the book would say, "Hey, you got to do this," but when you're in the situation, you kind of got to feel out when is the right time, because you could ruin the creative process at the moment. This is maybe not the business time. There's a time for everything, and you gotta be able to be in those situations and kind of ride these things and know when's the right time. And experience is what does that. Experience is what allows you to find those moments of, okay, I didn't do that this time, but I did it this time. I know what to do.
All right,
You
it's
know.
because it's all very nuanced.